Okay, let's count the knots. Okay, now this is a very schematic representation of how a jiu-jitsu match could look like. And you can see here there are two strategies, right? There's strategy number one that says, well, I start in a neutral position, I go for a flying submission, flying armbar, triangle, whatever, and I get the tap. It's amazing. 3 knots, okay? Two transitions, okay? Well, let's look at this other strategy, one in which I start in a neutral position and I sweep, or like I pull guard, or I wrestle and I take my partners down. I go to half guard chest to chest, then I go to mount, then I go to the back, and then I get my tap. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 transitions for 6 knots. Okay. Now, on paper, you will be demented to pick strategy number 2. Why would you? It's much more work. Probably is going to take much longer. And you look at this and you think, well, more knots means more things that go wrong. They're just more passages, right? More steps. Here, on paper, it looks great. 3 things. 1, 2, 3. I just need to learn one thing. Probably takes much shorter. And I get the tap, which is, we all agree this is the end result of the sport. The sooner I get there, well, the better. And this is how most beginners think, okay? This is how I made a video about tricks and about sort of understanding good feedback. This is how most beginners think they're going to get away with, okay? Except that is just simply not true. Or even more disappointingly, even more confusingly, sometimes it is true. Sometimes it is true that this strategy number 1 is better, okay? Because, well, sometimes it just works. You just see people, and Instagram is full of such videos that you just go there, flying submission, boom, tap after 30 seconds, highlight, reel, great, amazing stuff. Well, there's a reason why these things end up in reels, because they're uncommon. If you were common, well, they wouldn't end up in reels, would they? Nobody wants to see common things on Instagram. People want to get entertained. People want to see cool stuff that almost never happens. This bit, it's much more laborious, but for each knot, each transition maximizes the control and increases your partner's fatigue, okay? And keeps your partner in a defensive cycle, okay? Let's say a defensive cycle starts somewhere here around a half guard chest to chest, or even here when it comes to sweep and takedown. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It has 5 defensive cycles. Okay. Here, well, there's only one. Okay, it just needs to defend one thing, the flying submission. Oftentimes, what happens is that flying submissions don't work, and you end up, because you haven't maximized the control, you haven't kept your partner in 5 or 6 defensive cycles, or 20, depending on how long this chain would go. Well, what happens is that your partner resets to neutral, okay? Or even worse, your partner resets in an offensive cycle, okay? So from here, from instead of a tap, the algorithm would go neutral position, flying submission, and then you miss the flying submission, and then your partner takes your back, and oops, okay? What Instagram doesn't show is all the flying submissions that went wrong. We tend to remember, it's kind of survivor bias, right? Survivor's bias. We tend to remember the ones that work, but we kind of like to forget the ones that don't work. This is a much more unglamorous approach to jiu-jitsu, but over time, this is where you will see most development and the highest rate of success. Stop counting the knots that will take you to get from neutral to a tap, and start counting the knots in terms of each knot is a defensive cycle that I'm forcing my opponent into. And a compound effect of many defensive cycles, will lead me to the tap, okay? Or vice versa, a compound effect of, from my perspective, many offensive cycles that's what leads me to the tap.